And welcome back to another edition of the MLB Inside the Diamond podcast. I'm your host, Tom Johnston, and I'm joined by always the one and only LaMarr Fields. How you doing, brother?
Pretty good. Can't complain.
Of course not. Well, there's been a lot of stuff happening recently in Major League Baseball. We're going to cover that and then some. And the first topic is this. Now that the season's winding down and stuff like that, at least the regular season, but that's where a lot of conversation comes into like who deserves what award and everything. There's a lot of speculation that Shohei Ohtani is a MVP candidate, but a lot of people, at least from what I've seen on the social media posts, is a lot of people say that he shouldn't get it because he's on the Angels and they're losing. But I think people fail to realize that Mike Trout has also been awarded MVP in the past, and he's been on the Angels in the same scenario. So, what are your thoughts on that, LaMarr?
Yeah, it's been done before with Alex Rodriguez with the Rangers. I'm not a fan of it, but he is having an amazing season. I mean, I think the MVP should go on to a team that's actually in the playoffs and actually winning games, that's contributing with winning games. Because I mean, Otani is a great player and doing great things for the team, but it's not translating into wins. It's the award is most valuable player. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, he's
well,
not a he. It's obviously not a valuable player if they're losing. I mean, he is, but look at the record.
I would think that it's this way. Sometimes I think the way the league interprets the rule is okay, most valuable player. Because the way I look at it is, or the way I would say I would define it is, okay, how valuable is like Ohtani? Because think about it, whenever the Angels didn't have Trout, I mean, they might have still been losing, but they might be losing at a more drastic rate if they didn't have Otani. And I think that that's one of the reasons why the dude like is in the conversation for MVP, but he's also a pitcher a and a DH. But even then, you're talking about a guy that does both sides of baseball. Both offense and defensively. I I don't honestly see why he shouldn't get it. I mean, he's a
Man,
valuable
The
player.
Yankees got the best record in the major league. Aaron Judge is about to hit 60-something home runs. That's no question MVP. I don't care that you pitching and hitting. That's all great. Maybe the best player in the league, but you're losing.
Mm-hmm.
You're losing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I guess people see it. I don't know. It's
It's
hard. I guess it's
the
hard to
war.
really
The war it ain't
determine
hard. The word is
valuable.
most valuable player.
Yeah.
Most valuable player. You're nowhere near the playoffs. Come on, man. It's cut and simple.
That
It's simple. I don't know why people make stuff so difficult. It's simple to me. Yeah, you're a great player. Do you deserve the award? Yeah, you deserve to be in the running. But you're not in the playoffs. Not even sniffing the playoffs. Not even close.
I mean, that's fair enough.
By
I
Aaron Judge,
mean,
New York, with about to hit like 60-something home runs, and they got one of the best records in the league.
I get where you're coming from. I mean, it has pros and cons, but it just doesn't look right to be the MVP if your team's like not winning. I
Yeah,
get
you
that.
got to win, man. You got to at least be in the playoffs. For me,
I get that.
unless you having,
It's
unless you got like 70-something, 80 home runs or something like that, then okay. But come on, man. This man Aaron Judge hitting home runs almost every night. You want
that
to give it
is
to you want to give it to somebody that's like 20 plus games under 500?
I mean, it wouldn't be a good look. No, it wouldn't. But it's hard to say. I don't get it. I don't. I just go with the flow. Just go with the flow. But that brings me to topic number two, and this is why I say baseball season's interesting because whenever you look at two divisional races right now, you look at the NL East and the NL Central. A lot's been transpiring within the past couple of weeks. For example, the Mets have like had a commanding lead on that NL East division from literally game one, the season opener. And, they've lost traction because now the Braves are only a half game out, and the same could be said for the NL Central, where the Brewers have had a commanding lead, or at least a solid lead in the NL Central. And recently, the Cardinals have overtaken them. Well, I don't consider it like recently, but it did happen. LaMarr, explain like overall, how these divisional races can come down to the wire, because you see how the Braves, like nobody thought that the Braves might have caught the Mets. A lot of people were thinking, the Mets are going to run away with it. And now you look at where we're at, and it's like the Braves are only a half game out.
If you look at it, the Braves been there. The Braves been there all. Well, they started slow, but they picked it up, and they've been right around. They've been in striking distance all season long. It's gonna be a. That's gonna be a fun race to keep your eye on, man. I want to see. Want to see what the schedules look like. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they got played. Pretty sure they got played each other. Yeah, they got us in the end of September, early October. They got a 3-game set. Atlanta and New York. Yeah, at Atlanta, so that's gonna be huge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
totally. But that's a very significant thing. I mean, even though even though that the Mets have held leads and everything, but like it seems that they've been in the thick of things. That just shows how tough baseball is throughout the season, because no lead is a safe lead. It's like I tried to tell people, early on, everyone would say, oh well, whenever the Angels lost that momentum and everything, oh, the division's over. It might look that way, but you honestly can't say it, because you don't know what could happen down the line. And I feel like this is great for baseball. And this is one of the reasons why I like baseball, is because you have stuff like that occurs to where it's like, okay, we really can't take our eyes off of this, because now it's starting to really blossom into something. And divisional races coming down to the wire, that's always amazing. I'm never a fan of a divisional race ending like even a week or two from like the season end. Like it to me, that's what makes people disinterested, because it's just like, okay, well, if they already clinched, it doesn't matter what they do the rest of the way, because they already clinched.
Yeah, it's coming down to the nitty-gritty time now. That race is closed. The
I
White
think
Sox,
there's a couple races that are
the White
closed.
Sox didn't crept back in. They only 1.5 games out right now. Yeah, yeah. What's the name? Tampa Bay hanging around 4.5
Oh
games
yeah.
out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's gonna be some. Those gonna be interesting. The races are gonna be interesting down the stretch.
And that's what makes it great, because see, here's the thing. People don't understand, around this season is the grueling time of the season, because you're in the home stretch of trying to finish the season. But then, like, you're also going to be you're also like dead tired, but at the same time, you're also going to be trying your hardest to play your best baseball, because this is where your best baseball comes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And now on to topic 3. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen this, because I did, and whenever I read this, I just says, you got to be kidding me. So there's rule changes coming next year to MLB, and a lot of it includes a pitch clock. And so if there are nobody on base, there's 15 seconds in between each pitch. And if there's somebody on base, you get 20 seconds. The bases will increase from 15 to 18 inches. And the last is shift restrictions. They have to have 2 position players on each side, and they can't be in the outfield grass. Now, I can see where they're getting with the bases part, just because it's the increase for player safety per se. Because we have seen some growing injuries in the past, LaMarr, where, a lot of people would say that play and the injury that subsequently followed that play could have been avoided if the base was bigger, or this, that, the other. What are your thoughts on this finally coming down, if it really changes anything? And do you think it would actually help the players out?
I think so. I mean, I'm totally in favor with the pitch clock to speed the game up, and I'm definitely totally unfair with the shift restrictions. I mean, how many times I'm seeing these hitters hitting balls right up the middle, should be a base hit, but the second baseman or shortstop right there because of the shift. I mean, let's face it, these shifts are making baseball bad to me. Not the game I grew up on. You got everybody batting like 220, 240 because they pull the ball right in the shifts. You smoke a ball right there, but the second baseman in shallow right center field and it's out. And
Yeah,
I think next year we actually gonna see more people batting 300s and actually people getting hits and actually scoring more runs and making baseball more exciting.
oh, totally,
Yeah.
totally. They tried to work their way up from making games long because what's initiated that stuff is the fact that umpires and the like would be complaining about how the Red Sox and the Yankees games would be like 4 hours long and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm not in disfavor of a pitch clock. I think that that's good because you see some pitchers they take their good old time and stuff like that and we've seen some videos of pitchers that have a long time in between pitches, and that could slow down the game. But I did think, and I did see that they were talking about having a timeout per at bat or something like that. I don't know. I think the original way that I read it, it seemed kind of weird, but you know, I don't know. I don't think a timeout's really going to make or break a difference in that regard. But, I am all in favor of the bases being bigger just for player safety and whatnot. I mean, you are at the highest level. You want to make sure that, you are using technology and everything you can to its advantage.
Yeah.
That way you can make your players safe that are, out on the field, becoming stars and, really working their tails off. It's only right to make the people that are playing feel the safest at the
Yeah.
highest level.
And the competition committee thinking that maybe with the bases bigger, it shortens the distance between bases. Maybe they start stealing bases again or more often, or so to say.
Yeah, now as far as the shift, I'm totally in favor of that because I think the shift does take a lot away from people, and so what if someone's a pull hitter? I mean, I think that over time, what you see is you'll see players that were once in their prime, no longer in their prime, but I just think that once they were able to do what the highlights of their career was, that the veterans, some of them, they just become pull hitters. That's just their hitting
Yeah.
style. And I don't
Yeah.
think that you should be punished for that. Or at
Yeah.
least somebody wants to make, a shift for that. But, hey, I'm all for it. Now I don't know how much you watched this week and perhaps, but college football was pretty interesting,
Yeah.
to say the least. First off, I don't know what games you did watch, but I do know Texas and Bama. I have
Yeah.
watched the highlights of that periodically over the past like 24 hours and stuff. But if you have watched that, what are your thoughts on that? And yeah.
Well, Texas showed up, man. I kept hearing all week how it was Alabama was going to cover that spread and Texas was going to get whooped. And Texas had a chance to win the game, play here and there. But hey, I mean, I know they say no moral victories, but you got to take that game and start building, take that game and work on what you need to work on and build on through the season.
Yeah, I'll probably say this. I thought that Alabama was going to go in and, like at
Yeah.
least have a touchdown or two in hand. But I think that, this game, more importantly, I don't think people understand. It's not even the fact that Texas came to play. It's the
Yeah.
fact that, the reason why Texas is going to the SEC is because of Oklahoma. And,
Yeah.
the SEC wanted Oklahoma to bring Texas with them in order for
Mm-hmm.
them to make that move. But I think it was more about everyone wants to say, oh, Texas is just going to be a doormat early on or whatever. I think it goes to show that, Texas wanted to show they could do what they needed to do to like stay in a game with a program like Alabama and the SEC. And that, yeah, the SEC is tough, but it's also the fact that Alabama's on the road at Texas. It's really not that easy to play in Texas, this
Oh,
time of year, perhaps, or whatever. But, you
yeah.
know, Ewers did his job, and there's a couple receivers to look out for on Texas and all that stuff. But there's a lot of other surprises too, LaMarr. For those that don't know, Notre Dame lost again yesterday, and now they were ranked number 5 week 1, ranked number 8, I believe, this week, and you have 2 straight losses this regular season, plus the game that he had coached last season in the bowl game. What are your thoughts on this, LaMarr? Because I mean, I don't, it's just crazy that a Notre Dame coach has done this because no Notre Dame coach has ever started a season 0-3.
Yeah, that's a bad loss to Marshall. That first home game of the season, and you lay an egg like that. Yeah, I'm anxious to see where they're going to be at in the poll. Or if they could be close to going 20s, or maybe even, I don't know if they're going to be out top. It's hard to say, but Marshall, that's a bad loss. I'm really interested to see when the poll drops where they at. And also, Washington State went into Wisconsin, beat them 17-14. That was just Washington State was 17.5 underdog on the road, and I was like, I'll do parlay cards. I was thinking about taking it, but I had to talk. I ended up talking myself out of it. And I was like, man, I knew they was going to cover. I knew they wasn't going to beat them by 17 points because Wisconsin they're not a big scoring offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to me, I mean that's a bad loss for Notre Dame because now it's like, okay, if we say the hypothetical that Notre Dame would have a big game down the line and some team beat them, what actual level of magnitude would that game actually have, considering that to open up the season, you lost on the road at Ohio State, but more importantly, you lost at home to a Marshall team, and I can understand, I heard Marcus Freeman's his post game presser, and he just said, hey, I mean, maybe it's the fact that they're still feeling the ramifications of the loss at Ohio State, but it's like that's something you have to bounce back on, especially if you're a top 25 team. That kind of just shows that it lingers there, but it's also like, with who you were facing, like, I mean, no disrespect to Marshall, but it's just there's certain games you're poised to win. But yeah, totally crazy. Now here's another game. I know that a lot of people were watching the Penn State game, and to be honest with you, well, maybe not a lot of people, but I mean, it was a fair game. Penn State covered the spread. But here's what I liked about the game itself was this was a game, and I think that Coach Franklin alludes to this a lot, or he alluded to this actually in his most recent press conference, is that games like that are good for guys that might get, a little bit of playing time during the season. But he says it's valuable for everybody else to build the depth chart, because I started to see how comfortable, or a little bit more comfortable, Drew Aller got. I know that he's seen action at Purdue, but to come in here and to come into that kind of game and see action against, it doesn't even really matter who the action is against. It's just the fact that he's seeing it. That goes a lot down the line, because a lot of people are dubbing him as the future of Penn State football. And I could see it happening for the foreseeable future. I mean, people got to understand this guy is already 6'4", but he's already 240 as a true freshman in college. So, I mean, he's got the frame and everything you would need for a guy to take over. It's just a matter of the experience paying off for him.
Yeah, nothing trumps experience, man. You get on that field, make the most of it.
Oh yeah, but it also helped because he was also an early enrollee. He enrolled in January, so he got all of spring plus summer. So I think what they're trying to start to do is they're trying to test to see, how much more vital is it if you're an early enrollee, or if you can, because you'll get there earlier. You'll at least start to learn the system a little bit more. And I think it just goes to show, for where he was whenever he got Penn State's first offer to where he actually finished is you really can't predict that. But I mean, that is great stuff. And I do know that Nick Singleton has was showing there's a bright spot in the running back room. Because I know Franklin has alluded to this too during his press conference yesterday, is that in the past they were able to run the ball, but they were never able to like run it to the right like they were with Singleton. And he had a couple explosive plays and stuff. And I feel like, if this is the future, I'm excited, but I'm also thinking to myself, like, thank God that, they're getting this experience. But also, I also really like to thank the Big Ten and the NCAA for saying, hey, yeah, well, if you're still going to redshirt, you can still play 4 games because that's 4 games of experience you have to learn and study from.
Yeah.
That's better than 0. And little experience is better than 0. So there's that. And then I do know that there were a couple other games on the docket that I wanted to look at. Oh, here's a big one: Appalachian State and Texas A&M. I don't know if you've seen that, but I did, and it's crazy to think. A lot of people, LaMarr, they will look at a college football schedule and just say, okay, that team and that team is automatic W's. And this App State team is not a joke. I actually firsthand got to witness how they shouldn't be taken lightly because whenever they were at Penn State a few years back, I was at that game as a student, and I can tell you this: my head was pounding in a bad way because I had a headache, but my heart was also pounding because I honestly did not want to witness that kind of upset. But this team is no joke. In the past couple of years, they have taken down some serious Power 5 schools and programs that it really leaves a dent later on in their schedule. Talk about how a loss like this, such as what Texas A&M suffered, how that can really impact them in the rankings, but more importantly, impact them later on down the line.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely one less win they have on their record. Now they pretty much got to win all the rest of their games to have a possible chance at the playoff. But you know how it is. If they do win the rest of their games, and they're gonna say, the SEC schedule this, and that. They'd be right in the mix of things again. It's a bad loss, but like I tell our football team every week, it's on the next week, win or lose. You gotta turn the page and get past it and let the chips fall when they made in the season. Appalachian State, I mean, they should never be taken lightly. They always come to play, no matter who they play. Well-prepared team, kids play hard. That's all you can ask for.
Just in this conversation, it really makes me think of this question, because since a lot of shuffling is being moved around in the Big 12 and in the Pac-12 for that matter, maybe this brings up the question, because whenever people have thought about expansion for the Big 12 and everything, nobody ever thought of App State. I think that if there's a program that should be thought of, it should be App State because, there's not a lot of like FCS, schools like that actually pull that kind of success off as a program that often. And I think that if you talk about, expansion conference wise, you should look at, what teams can actually keep it close versus just show up to fill the void. I think that's what you really have to look at in that regard. And I think that App State definitely does deserve a chance if they want a chance for sure. But, and I'm not discounting any of the other programs that get offers into the Big 12 or the Pac-12 or whatever you might have at whatever conference it is for that matter. But I just say that I just use those 2 conferences because when you talk about expansion and what conferences are losing, those are the 2 conferences that are losing probably their most vital brands for revenue wise and stuff. But it's like, think about another program to take the reins. App State is definitely up there. I think that that loss can go one of 2 ways for A&M. I think that first off, it can actually be good or bad. And I say bad because if App State doesn't start to have success, then it looks really bad. But if App State actually goes on a winning streak of some sort and really does good in their conference this year and stuff, that could look good, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also not a good look in general because you
Yeah.
are the number 6 ranked team in the country. Even though App State is known for doing it, you need to be the bigger person. You're on your home field. Like, that's a loss that's like intolerable to like actually rebound from. And not saying that the Aggies won't rebound from that, but that's just a tough loss to deal with in week two, coming out of the gate. But you know, it happens to the best of them. It does.
Yep.
I mean, but that shouldn't happen. This is just, but yeah. I mean, I I. What were your overall thoughts this week about college football? Because like there are some teams that we've seen that play this week that play each other next week. For example, Auburn and Penn State. Penn State travels to Auburn next week for a 3:30 kick, and I take any team out of the SEC very not lightly at all. I would take them with every bit of seriousness there is because it is the SEC. But just seeing you can gauge for how a game might go based off of how the teams previously played the week before and stuff. But even talking about other programs, Ohio State, yeah, they to be fair, they have put a number on both of their previous 2 week opponents. But a lot of people are also saying, even though Ohio State might be doing what they're doing, they do show some weaknesses, and it is evident. And, I think it goes to show that even though, a team might look good on paper, doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to reciprocate because if you have some freshmen in the lineup, I mean, nothing to take away from a freshman, but it is tough to jump from high school to college football. I don't care how good you are at grasping it. It is just tough in general. But overall, I think that Ohio State is still the team to beat. If I'm being honest right now, I probably do have them as one of the teams to be headed to the college football playoff. They are that talented. But even then, they still have work to do and stuff. But besides the games we went over, what other games stood out to you? Because I know there was Pitt and Tennessee. Tennessee won that game, and nothing against Pitt fans. A lot of them were out in full force, but it doesn't look good when you're like the underdog on your home turf.
Yes, that's bad. You're on your home turf. I thought I watched a little bit. Got home yesterday. I watched a little bit of San Jose State Auburn game. San Jose State could have pulled it off, but that battle, that's for San Jose State play SEC school and compete. I mean, I know Auburn ain't like their Auburn from years past, but still get some top talent there, and San Jose State was able to compete, and they got to feel good about it.
I
Yeah.
think that it happens for three reasons. Like,
Yeah.
these programs just don't want to, because a lot of people on paper, you take a look at the average college football fan, it will say, oh, well, you're supposed to win by that. And I think some of these schools that are, in that category, they want to come with the mindset that we're just not going to roll over. Like we're going to bring a fight with us. And I think that that's a good look on both sides because it shows that, hey, you might be in a different conference, but that doesn't mean you have like less talent or like you can't compete. So I think it's good, but it also kind of shows that, hey, might some of these programs be taking it easy early on just to, avoid whatever it is that they might avoid down the line or whatever the case is. But I know that the rankings are going to get shifted a little bit because I know Notre Dame's going to move down. I do know that probably the name's slipping my mind right now, but I know Texas A&M, they're probably going to move down, but you know Alabama's without a doubt the number one team in the country. But do you think that moving forward they might look more severely at Alabama's play because like okay yeah Alabama won, but there were also Texas State in the game, so it's like you know down the line, anything can happen. But do you think that that would have any bearing on their rankings moving forward?
No, not at all.
Exactly.
Alabama's
Exactly.
Alabama. You know that. know how that goes.
Well, let's put it this way: what happens if they would have lost? That
Yeah,
would have been a shocker. But some of the I look back at some of those calls though that were made.
yeah,
Yeah, that referee crew needs to. It's like the previous week with Pitt in West Virginia. I know people that go to both schools, but a lot of the West Virginia folks were like, "Oh, the referees were for Pitt," and I'm just like, "Why would Big 12 refs be for Pitt?" Like they're the refs from your own conference. Like, why would they do that? So yeah, it's crazy, but hey, it is what it is. But yeah, I
yeah. I
do
just
know for a fact.
look at Alabama's schedule right now. They don't play Georgia this year,
Hmm.
which I think is smart because you end up having to play them. You would end up having them playing twice, possibly three times. It's all made once during the season, probably once in the SEC championship game to say it went that way. Then maybe again in the college football playoff, they made it that far. So yeah, it's probably smart that they don't play each other in the regular season.
Yeah, that is smart. That
Yeah.
and I think that might be a reason that I think there were certain shuffling in certain team schedules this year because
Mhm.
I know Penn State was supposed to play Illinois this year, but then they swapped that out.
Yeah.
I forget who they swapped it with, but yeah. But I mean it's a tough scenario, but I'm at least happy that, that stuff's not too effective at the moment. But
Yeah.
I do know that's gonna do it for this week's edition of this podcast because college football is just getting started. I know that, next week there or this coming up week, there's a fair amount of good matchups going on. There's Penn State at Auburn. I don't know if any of the lines have gone out, but it's kind of funny because this past week we were able to predict two teams that were able to fully cover the spread, and that was Michigan, I believe, and and uh, I forget who else covered the spread, but I do know there was a couple. But I believe Pitt definitely did, but who knows? But anyway, that will do it, and we'll see you again for another edition next week.